conversation for the live. This is what we want to talk about.
There we go. Okay, we're live.
We live?
Yeah.
Hey.
Welcome to pregame, everybody. I'm Man in the Bag with
Chris
always
Bliss.
Chris Bliss, and we've got Zach with us today.
Hey, what's up?
Zack SantaBarbara.
Mr. SantaBarbara.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah. So thank you for coming on with us, Zach. You're going to be doing the guest spot on Wednesday, and
Absolutely.
yeah, like it's the whole thing to me is really interesting because like we have been like going to parties for a long time, and
Yeah.
like you're part of the younger generation that's like coming up. So like
Mhm.
I am just kind of trying to get my head around the fact that like the things that we're in love with, you're in love with now. And like, that just seems weird because
Yeah.
I feel like people that are like younger than us are like,
Mhm.
oh, them old men and their drum and bass. I'm like,
Yeah.
it just doesn't
Well,
make any sense to me.
It's funny, like, so like when I first got into the scene and like the drum and bass scene, it wasn't a lot of like gatekeeping and stuff like that. It was more of like there's all these different styles, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. And then a lot of like the newer styles of drum and bass came around, like the newer style of jump up, for example, where it's a lot more like quarter note stabs and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think a lot of people like around 2013 time when that style started becoming popular, you know what I mean? Kind of related it to dubstep almost, and a lot of like the younger kids and everything, and these all like huge festivals and stuff. And it kind of lost the essence of like the original underground and all that, you know
Well,
what
that's
I
the
mean?
thing. Like all the
How it
kids, like
was.
sorry to call you kid, but your
No,
age
go for it.
coming in, it's like it's all dubstep, it's all rhythm. Like they're going in that
Yeah.
direction. You know what I mean?
Well,
It's
was
funny
the-
though.
What was the transition? Was it from dubstep to halftime to drum and bass, or where did halftime kind of like fit in that?
To me, halftime, like, it was kind of, yeah, probably around like 2013ish era. Like, it was still prevalent, very much so, but you had a lot of people like Chasing Status or like Cone Sound, for example, who came into like the dubstep style, you know, and stuff like that, and kind of switched things up a little bit and brought a lot of the neuro synths and all that into it. And I feel like even though it moved away from that sound in dubstep right now, it still opened the door for a lot of producers like Zed's Dead, for example. Like they still do, like, they're a big artist and still do primarily dubstep, but they still have a lot of drum and bass originals that they put in their sets and stuff like that, that a lot of the younger generation pick up on, are like, I really like this, you know what I mean? But I think a lot of them just don't know where to find it though, either readily accessible.
Well, the crossover side, I mean, I liked dubstep from the beginning. I thought that it was awesome. My main issue was that I saw that there was a cultivation specifically only towards dubstep. So, like, in the beginning, Diesel Boy, who's somebody that me and Chris have loved forever, kind of like he bridged the gap for both sides of it. And like,
Absolutely.
I don't feel like he got the same notoriety he would have gotten if he would have just gone straight dubstep all by himself.
I can agree with that, absolutely, because like he has his sub label, Subhuman, and all that as well that he runs. That's primarily dubstep and all bass music as well. Reed Speed's another perfect example of that. She also has Play Me Records that has a bunch of dubstep artists and trap and bass artists on it, you know. But I feel like a lot of that, though, at the same time it's still the generational gap, kind of, you know what I mean? Because Diesel Boy was known for dubstep, so was Reed Speed, you know, even though that they own these labels and they make a lot of collabs with the younger artists, you know what I mean? It's not constant put out of that type of music, you know what I mean? So it kind of gets thrown into the back burner. because there's so much of it coming out. It's such a saturated market. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Any music.
So talking about the age gap there, we saw the age gap on the other end of it, where like Reed Speed and Diesel Boy were only playing drum and bass when we were coming up.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people our age, like when dubstep came out and they started playing dubstep, everybody's like, oh my God, they sold out, which, I mean, I hate that term anyways, but
yeah,
we're old. We like to bitch about stuff. Not me and Curtis, we're still pretty open-minded about music, but a lot of people did. They were like, oh, what is this crap? You know what I mean? Why change up? Well, you got to change up to play the scene, you know?
Well, the thing that got me is that, like, I had been relatively checked out of everything for, I'd say, like, 10 years. And, like, the thing that got me the most, and, like, I don't understand why this happened or what happened, is that every genre that I've ever loved, now it still exists, which is awesome, because it just means that, like, the fire kept burning. You guys just renamed everything. Like, I don't know what the fuck happened, but, like, you guys, like...
You're not wrong.
You're like, Gabber? No, I don't like Gabber. We're going to call that hardstyle from here on out. I was like, okay, well, I guess that's where we're going with that. And then it's like, what other things did you guys, like, rename? Oh, Acid Trance. Acid Trance was, like, the biggest thing ever, and now it's Tech Trance. Yep. Or, like, you know, like... Oh, Booty House.
Electro is another perfect example of that. Like, electro used to be like baseline house, you know what I mean? And stuff like that. And now it's like big room, like, you know, like mindless. Like, I totally get it.
Changed. And it was just like, it was like, well, I really like playing this style, but I don't know what you guys decided to call it now.
And I think that's a big part of the disconnect too, is like, for some reason between like 04, when like, not drum and bass kind of like shifted styles, you know, and trance kind of started becoming big and coming in. But like all of a sudden everything kind of switched. And then that's where all the name switch and everything came in too. Cause trance turned in, or hard trance turned into hard style, you know, Gabber turned into what was like hardcore now, you know, and stuff like that. And
that was like the micro generation.
Exactly. And a lot of like newer generation after that weird 8-year gap, you know, it's not available because that's when the internet came in now. So there's that disconnect of time of like,
well, for me,
genre names and stuff.
I had to like go back and like figure out what everything was, which was fine because I was going to do that anyways. But like Neuro, for instance, that is fucking tech step. It's tech step. It's like nothing changed. Like it's legitimately, if I would play you a tech step album from like 2000, and like a Neuro track from now, you'd be like, oh, okay, same track. I'd be like, no, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
Curtis,
like
I actually had to ask.
Like a perfect example of that. Like, absolutely. Like, I totally get that. And like, it's funny though, because like when you search for it still, if you still use like the old terms like tech step, or like, you know, you're looking for like Reach tracks or jungle tracks, you know, you could still type that in and find newer styles of that, even though it's not called that anymore, you know, because not the older generation, but the people that grew up with it as tech step, you know, are still calling it that, even though it's a newer style, you know, even though now it's Neuro, it's still always going to be tech step to them, obviously, you know.
We actually had to ask DJ Nevermore, Teddy, you and me, Curtis, what hardstyle was. I was like, so there's hardcore, there's Gabber, there's hardstyle. He's like, no, it's just Gabber. I was like, what are we doing here?
Let's throw some love out to Charlie in the chat room. What's up, Charlie?
Charlie!
He was bringing out that it's the sub-gentrification generation.
Yeah. I like that. Gentrification. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Like at one point, like everybody was like, nah, but this is this though, you know, and it's got its own thing. Like rollers is our preferred example. Like rollers isn't a subgenre, but like, you know, a roller when you hear one, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things.
You feel rollers. You don't
the other thing that was interesting, and this might just be a byproduct of how Beatport like just lumps everything together, which to me just drives me crazy. But it's good.
I personally don't use Beatport a lot, honestly.
Yeah, the Liquid section. Yeah, I start listening to Liquid, and I'm like, well, this sounds like the intelligent stuff from LTJ, and then I jump to another like Liquid track, and I was like, holy shit, this is like 1998, you know, Moving Shadows jazz step. Like this is 100% jazz step. And then like it jumps to another track and I'm like, this is just normal drum and bass. I'm like, that category by itself holds so many genres that just disappear.
Absolutely.
That like if you're playing liquid, you honestly should just not say that it's liquid and just call it drum and bass.
Well, yeah, because like you have like stuff like that people like Halogenics are making, for example, like their new song Independent that came out, like that's like super funky, low key, like, but it's not neuro, but it's light like liquid, but it's still got that like roll to it, you know, and all that. And it's like there's not really it doesn't classify as anything anymore. You know what I mean? It's its own thing at this point. And there's so many songs like that that are being made that like I feel like it's hard to keep a track of everything unless you're literally going through every day looking for new music, you know? And unfortunately, that's where like a lot of music gets lost. It's like all this great music, like, you know, like I've been following Hospital Records forever. Like I have a bunch of like their old like plastic surgery vinyls, like, and all those from like 97 and stuff like that. And like I could throw that on and still get the same vibe as if like I went to Hospital's website today, you know, and typed in something. It just might be better quality.
Well,
you know?
I think that Hospital is kind of an interesting entity in itself, and I have a funny anecdote that I'll give you afterwards. But I think that the London Electricity, I forget his name. I think it's Charlie.
Tony.
Is it Tony? Tony, yeah.
Tony.
He has been so hyper aware of that label and able to like keep the origins of it the same way that like Metalheads has been the same from start to finish. And I think that like
absolutely
and I explained this to Chris a couple weeks ago, and I think that it's a prime example of like where things are moving forward is that like labels always sound the same, but artists don't. So like
exactly
that's where like if you go to Night Force and listen to Night Force right now, like Night Force is the same label that it was in like 1990. And like if you go to Hospital, it's the same because like there's somebody who inherently loves it and choreographs it to be what it is. And
I like chimed in and said that Night Force is killing it right now.
Hell yeah.
They're on the other side.
I totally get that. Like that's like Boo in the Jump Up scene, for example, made Souped Up Records and Diamond Audio, for example, for like all the different jump up that didn't really fit the classic standardification of what newer or older jump up was, you know, and it was just like it's still a jump up though, you know. So he was like, you know what, I'm gonna put everybody on that is kind of on that role right now, you know. And now here it is a couple of years later, and it's one of the biggest now in the jump up scene, you know.
But see,
it's just like
that's the part that's so weird to me is that like jump up legitimately died. Like when we were in the scene, the only person that was producing tracks in that genre was Aphrodite.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like it was just
like probably Original Sin or something like that too.
Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those things where it was just like it was phasing out. It like it had its moment. Like we all loved it. Like if anybody dropped like a jump up set, like there was a kid here in New England that like I won't throw his name out there because it's just not worth it. But like he was mixing it with happy hardcore at the time, and it was like the craziest thing ever. And it was just one of those things that like buying those records were slowly phasing out because like everybody was moving over to tech step. And like that was kind of where we were at when things started to like phase out. But it is interesting to me to come back. So the London Electricity thing, I'll throw this out there. So we have a big jungle party that we're doing in February. And I usually plan stuff out like 3-4 months in advance. And we knew that we wanted to do an all jungle party, but we also like, we didn't want it to just be kids that were streamers. We wanted to like get real talent because like right now, real talent is they're able to play and they're like playing for cheap. And like, it's one of those things where like, you're asking them to not leave their house, play for an hour. And like, we're going to incentivize this by paying you. So like, we wanted to get big name talent and we went after everybody. I ended up talking to Tony to get him on the lineup. And he was so nice, so gracious. And he's like, okay, you just need to talk to my agent. We're good to go. So he boots me over to the agent. And the agent's like, yeah, that's not ever happening. I was like, oh, why?
Yeah.
I was like, I would have been so happy to have Tony on that lineup. But,
absolutely.
you know, it's honestly, it was really interesting to see how many like big name talent were like, yeah, I'll think about it. No, I'm not sure. And then it was funny because I went to High Ranking and I was like, you want to do this? And he was like, sure, mate, no problem. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. I'll set you all up. He's like, okay, no problem. Fish and chips. And he like signs off. I'm like, okay, like legitimately,
No,
that guy is insane, and I love that about him.
It's like, it's funny because like that's like both sides of the spectrum. You know what I mean? You get like the super professional, like by the books, has to be that way, and like understandably why. You know what I mean? And then you get like the guys that are like, you know, I wouldn't say I'm like a lesser like known label, you know, but like something like Shogun Audio, for example, that's been around for like, you know, a couple years, but like, you know, but
be sure to tune in February.
Yeah. Well, like exactly, like, you know, like, and the guys there would probably be more like, you know, like, yeah, absolutely, like, you know, I got nothing else to do in the meantime anyways, you know, and like there's not as many hoops that they have to jump through, so to say.
You want to tell him, Curtis, or should I?
Oh, you can tell him. I think that it's fantastic that that's what he brought up.
I do too. So me and Curtis, the party with High Ranking, we're actually tag team. We're hopping over to his place. We're going to tag team. We're doing an entire Shogun set.
Hey, that's awesome.
That label is fire.
It's so fire.
Phenomenal.
Fire. Like
phenomenal.
And in that realm of like liquid labels, you don't get a lot of labels that like the thing with that I love about Shogun is that it's very like soulful and bassy, and like it's got that thing where it's like it's definitely still liquid. It's like intros and outros, like stuff like that, but you get these like super almost like Motown style like vocals, and then it hits with these bass lines that are just brutal.
It's got that soulfulness, you know what I mean? It almost reminds me of like old like Break, for example, or like DJ Die, you know what I mean? Where it just like it's got that atmosphere to it, you know? It's got that underlyingness to it where it's not just like a song, you know, you can kind of feel it, so to say.
So I was gonna I've been wanting to
to it. It's got depth to it. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So I've been wanting to pressure you about this all week once I saw that you had put up the post about the UFC thing.
Yeah.
That to me was like, I'm going to love Zach. This is a given. Like, he spins drum and bass. He wants to talk about UFC stuff. I'm like, bring it. I want it. I want it all. So how did you get into the UFC stuff? Because usually, like, you either get in because like you were doing jiu-jitsu or you're like, is that like you
so
usually...
I like took karate as like a kid, obviously, I took karate as a kid for the most part, and like never really stuck with it. But then like as I kind of like hit like probably my senior year or something like that, I started getting drawn back into it from a couple friends of mine, you know, that watched it all the time.
Yeah.
And I started picking up like how technical it actually is and stuff like that, you know, and like all of that stuff, and like just like from like placement to movement, you know, to just like tells and just trying to figure out like your opponent, you know, and like it just always captivated me, you know. It's just like it's so interesting because it's like such an ever evolving, like, you know, anything could happen during the fight for the most part.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah. And like the thing that I've always loved, and we've loved it for years, like years. Like I grew up in Colorado, so I was there when they had the first ones. And like I didn't really enjoy the beginning ones, but like when Dana White took over and like the UFC not the Contender Series, the
what, Pride and all that?
Well, I loved Pride. I just always like the guys that fought in Pride were monsters. I mean, they were roided up, but like they were monsters. So like Pride was great, but like for me in the beginning, it was the Tough series.
Got you.
And like that kind of like really, I got like riveted during the like the Liddell era. Like that was kind of like where I started. Yeah. And then
Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell.
Yeah. And then like from there, it's like it's been pretty heavy duty focused towards that. But like the thing that like I've just fallen in love like head over toes is that like when COVID happened, we had nothing. You didn't have any media, you didn't have any movies, you didn't have anything. And Dana's like, oh yeah, you have fights. And like they were bangers. Like
Yeah,
the
no, it was
last
great.
fights have been bangers.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Like I remember, like even before COVID, like with like the Korean zombie fight and all that when they were in Beijing,
God.
like and like between that and then like the fight between Shashak and Zhongli, for example, like like out of nowhere as a replacement and like probably one of the best women's UFC fight of all time. Like, you know what I mean?
I entirely, and it's funny because it works with women DJs too. Like a lot of time, guys look at female fighters and they're like, "Oh, women can't fight. Oh, this is a thing. Oh, like the only reason that this girl has viewership is because she's a DJ or because she's a woman." Like, legitimately, the girl fights in UFC are just as good as the men, if not better. Like,
oh my God,
absolutely.
they're brutal, dude.
Dude, that you want to fight? Her face looked like an alien.
I
Like,
know.
her forehead was just mashed.
Crazy.
She was not giving up that fight, and like that to me is
neither
like,
of them were.
Oh no,
it was a war. Like honestly, like it's crazy, but like it's like it's funny too because like people discredit them so much, yet like they go harder than like 3/4 of the fighters like in the UFC for the most
really
part,
do.
in my opinion. Like especially like even and like that's like the same thing. Everybody wants to see all these heavyweight fights and stuff like that, but like the flyweight guys and like the strawweight girls and all that, like all those fast strikers and stuff like that, like they're brutal and they're so fast on top of it.
I always
like,
preferred welterweight anyways, but I mean the heavyweight knockouts are pretty sweet, especially like compilation videos.
Well, absolutely, but like if
but
you're
I always
watching
like to see a little guy,
fight,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, if you're watching a heavyweight fight though, 9 times out of 10, unless there's like, some sort of grudge or something like that, like you're sitting there dancing for half of it and then,
and then it goes to decision.
Whatever. Or especially like within like the last couple, like, like in the last like year or so, like there's been some heavyweight fights that I won't name, but that's just like I basically watched them walk around the ring for 5 rounds, and it was like, are we serious right now? Like,
yeah, I'm with you on that. I have not been happy with the heavyweight division until just recently. The kid, I keep forgetting his name. The kid from Africa.
You're talking about Ngannou?
Yeah, Ngannou. I tried to explain to Chris about Ngannou, and like the easiest thing I could explain was that he's a walking tree trunk with a punch that could just wreck a car. Like his
it's like
fights,
Jones. Jones is the same way. Jones is just tall and lanky, you know what I mean? But like you get hit by like a punch or a kick by one of them, like forget it.
So I'm happy that you went there because that's actually what I was going to ask you. So I know that him and Adesanya have been like going back and forth with each other, and the rumor mill is that like after the Conor fight, because the Conor fight's going to be the one that's like the big money fight to start the year off.
Yep.
They want to do. They want him to drop back down to I think like 170, and they want Adesanya to jump up to 170.
Yeah.
And they want to fight. They want to do that super fight. So if they're both at 175. Do you think that Adesanya can pull off the win against Jones?
See, that's a tough call though, because like Adesanya hasn't jumped that much weight before, where Jones had lost that much weight, So like, it's kind of unpredictable. If Adesanya with all that weight on him, it'll throw him off, and he might not be as fast as he usually would. Or if Jones just might cut and he's just not the same anymore, because like it's been a while since Jones has been in the ring minus the last fight, you know what I mean? And like the last fight was kind of sloppy in my opinion.
That's what I'm gonna get at is that like I almost thought that Jones lost that fight to the kid from Mexico. I forget what his name.
It was close. It was close.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what his name is. So it was razors thin. Like that decision could have gone either way.
Absolutely.
So here's my thought process is that like if you take a look at what's the name of the guy from Australia, Kevin Gastelum?
I think so. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Gaston. I don't remember his first name.
It's the guy that had the title before that Adesanya got it from. It also doesn't matter. Anybody that's listening to this rambling is just like, yeah, whatever. I don't care what you're talking about. The way that Adesanya picked him apart in that fight, I, in the back of my mind, I slimly believe that, like, if you take Jones coming into into a fight with him, even with the weight changes and stuff. I think that he's on the back nine where Adesanya's on the front nine. And I think that Adesanya picks him apart.
I can agree because Adesanya has shown time and time again that he could switch style depending on his opponent of what he's fighting. You know what I mean? Whether it's a grappler, whether it's, jiu-jitsu, no matter what it is, where Jones is kind of stuck into the same plan the entire way through, Yeah. But the thing that Jones has going for him, like I said, is he's made giant weight jumps before and has fought very well doing it, where Adesanya is kind of the wild card in that, where nobody knows because it hasn't happened yet.
So in that realm of like interesting UFC things, what like most of the heavyweights and most of like the champions in the division most people know about. I just saw Alkvar bring up that he like doesn't know anybody on there, and like that's kind of like the general approach is that most people like they knew Conor and they knew Ronda, but like outside of that, like there's no like real stick. And I think long term, I think that's where Adesanya goes. But like the thing I have never been able to figure out is that girl that has the title in both divisions and from Brazil.
Nunes.
Yeah, Nunes. Why has she not gotten that notoriety that like that Ronda had before? Is it because she's Brazilian?
I don't know. See, that's not really my place to say, really, but she's definitely been getting more notoriety in recent years, whether it's from commentators or whatever, because at this point, I don't care who you put up against Nunes in any like division, anything, she's destroying them hands down. And that's all that she's shown so far.
Yeah.
Chris Cyborg's a perfect example of that, to where Cyborg won't even take the fight anymore.
Yeah, I mean, dude, when Nunes fought Cyborg, holy cow, did she get picked apart. I mean, like, there's just nobody that can face up with that girl and not just get leveled.
It's crazy. It's absolutely wild.
The pure dominance. And it's funny because it's like Dana pushed Ronda like she was Nunes. She wasn't. And, like, she just crumbled. And
I think that was the marketability of her.
That's the thing is that, like, you can put her on Ellen. You can put her in movies. Like, she was... I mean, I'm happy that she's over in the WWE now because like that's a really good space for her.
Yeah.
But like, she was marketed to be what Amanda Nunes is, and Amanda Nunes doesn't get that same type of love. Like, she's not going on Ellen. Like, she's not in movies. Like, it's just not like, it's not the same thing. I can agree,
but you got to remember though that Ronda is from this country where Nunes is not. So. That could be also said in Brazil to where she could be blown up over there, and we just don't see it.
It could be.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I just
because
feel like
there are multiple commentator tables in the UFC and stuff like that, obviously, that we all don't listen to, that run their own ads, etc. So you don't know, like, even though we're not getting fight promos and training camp promos and stuff like that, that doesn't mean that the other commentator channels are like, UFC Europe, for example, aren't getting those.
Right. That's
so
fair.
Okay. So Zach, you sent over your new track. Let's bang that. Let's throw that up so that we can like go through and talk about it afterwards and get that going.
So we've got Zach playing for us on Wednesday. This Wednesday, which is the 5th? No, tomorrow's the 5th. 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
January 6th. 9 to. You want an hour? 9 to 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Got some new music I'm gonna play, including this track right here, and then a bunch of new music that I've gotten over the year of COVID of just sitting in my house and just digging for music, that I'm really happy to share.
How do I pronounce this, Zach? Because I think that if I try, it's gonna come out wrong.
Okay, so it's called Perpendiculous. So it's a nod to SSX3, one of the
fantastic.
Yeah, one of the super pipe maps that they had was called Perpendiculous. So it's a nod to that. The cover art is actually from that game as well.
Curtis, I think you need to play Tricky first then.
Yeah, it's tricky,
right?
Tricky. Okay, let me hit start and then just let me know if you guys can hear it.
It says you're already sharing audio, so you should be fine.
Yep.
Yeah, you're good.
There you go.
Get it.
But yeah, so that's some of the newer stuff that I've been working on recently. Bunch of new stuff. Oh, thank you.
It's classic drum and bass. It's the stuff that I fell in love with when I was your age, younger than you.
Yeah, no doubt. Like, definitely has a lot of neuro influence, you know, but it's a lot. I like a lot of the more minimal tech stuff, like, you know, so like I try not to, you know, kind of overdo it, you know, and kind of let it kind of sit on its own. So to say.
I mean, those techie hi-hats are just so classic for us. I mean, it's really what like we like fell in love with. I mean, when we came up, I would say that like the person that was like really pushing that the most was like Dara and AK were all on that whole like tech hi-hat.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just something about it when you're in a room and you're getting full bass pushed on you and you get that tech hi-hat. It just rings over top of
it rips through
definitely.
it. Yeah.
Well, like I learned on vinyl too, you know, like mixing like old 90s like Diesel Boy, like I had like, you know, like Invid on vinyl, and like I had like old Bad Company like Planet Dust and stuff like that. Nice. So like so like I don't know, like that was like my upbringing in drum and bass for the most part. So like I like taking a lot of the older elements and mixing it with like the newer elements of neuro and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
it's good to see the younger generation that, I mean, you're like a drum and bass historian. And what are you, 22, 23 years old?
Yeah.
It's fantastic, dude.
So something I was going to ask you about, Zach, and maybe it doesn't work the same way with vinyl, is that when you take a new piece of neuro and you put it on one platter and you take a vintage version of Tech Step, do you not notice the degradation from like jumping from the new to the old?
See, that's a hard one. It depends on the track. You know what I mean? Because like even some of the newer tracks, you know what I mean? Like aren't super overly produced, so to say. So like with proper layering, you know, it almost complements it. You know what I mean? To where like for like doubles and stuff like that, you know, it brings almost a different flavor to it, because like that old like vinyl sound, you know, and it has like a little bit more noise on it, but like it adds more transience to it, you know. So you might not get that grit on newer stuff because of how overproduced it is, you know.
Yeah, the old stuff has that crunch and that grit.
Exactly, you know. So like if you're trying to switch like just straight from track to track, like drop to drop like that, you're definitely probably going to hear it, but if you do it with some proper layering, and mix it in well enough, the crowd won't really tell the difference, and they might actually enjoy it because it'll either be A, something they haven't heard before for the newer generation, or B, a classic that somebody could remember,
Yeah.
You're blowing my mind because I'm thinking about, like, every time I do my jungle sets, a lot of the time I'm just slamming through my tracks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really layer as much as I probably should.
Yeah.
And I noticed that, like, what it was most evident for me is I had a track that worked with one of my break sets.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an old 80s song that I'm never going to remember what the name of it is, but, like, it
Yeah.
was actually in that same style. And I
Yeah.
wanted to drop it into my break set. And, like, the minute that I crossed over from the new breaks to that old 80s sounding break, even though it was the exact same style, it would have been perfect together. It just felt like I just sucked the, like, wind out of the room. Like, I just rolled the bass down to zero.
It just falls flat almost,
Yeah.
I totally
digital
get
recordings
that.
from back then aren't as quality as they are now either. You know what I mean? So
well, exactly.
we're playing.
And that's what I was saying with, like,
digital.
the layering definitely helps with that, because
absolutely.
the newer with the older definitely it brings out more transients from the newer stuff, so to say, but it doesn't fall flat if you were just to play the older on its own. I mean, like, personally, when I spin a set, for the most part, I like to try to hit every genre for the most part, because when I was taught how to spin drum and bass, it was always like, it was a journey, you know what I mean? You never stick in the same key, you never stick to the same, style for the most part, it's from point A to point B,
Yeah.
It's all about working the energy of the room.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like, how much influence was your mom on this whole situation? Like, it was all mom, right?
Part of it definitely, for the most part, like, she definitely encouraged it a lot, so to say, like, I was like, for example, I said I wanted to, like, learn how to spin and stuff like that, and she was like, cool, but you got to do it the proper way and, like, learn vinyl. And I was like, all right, I'm completely okay with that. And then became a vinyl hoarder,
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know, like, that definitely had part of it, but it was definitely a big part on my own of sitting there for hours and hours and, like, digging through music and finding what kind of drum and bass I like compared to hers, because we have two completely different tastes in electronic music for the most part. You know what I mean? Whether we meet in the middle on a lot or, like, have a lot of the same songs that we like, there's vast that we definitely dislike from each other.
Yeah,
So
but she built the structure on you needing to, do it the right way, and then you fill the blanks in between.
So have you guys tag teamed together yet?
No.
Do you think that you wouldn't do that, or do you think that would be something you would ever do in the future?
I don't know. Can't really say. You know what I mean? Like, if it happens, it happens. But if it doesn't,
because I don't know how
really
I would feel about that. Like, if my dad was a DJ or if my mom was a DJ, the idea of spinning with my parents is just so foreign to me.
I'm trying to teach DJ, dude. I'm trying to teach him.
Well, see, like, and again, I think it comes with, like, the generational gap, because how she listened to drum and bass back in the 90s, and early 2000s is definitely different from when I got into it, listening to mixes from, like, say, Andy C, for example, or, like, AMC, who's, like, one of my favorite DJs, even before, like, all the drum and bass award stuff and all that. Like,
AMC wrecks it, dude. I saw AMC at Cambridge. Elements.
Yeah.
Insane.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, like, hands down, definitely one of my favorite DJs for sure.
I saw Andy C at Elements too. That was fantastic.
Definitely influenced a lot of my style for the most part when I mix on multiple decks. You know what I mean? I like always keeping the energy going for the most part, instead of, like, drop to breakdown to drop to breakdown.
Speaking of multiple decks, Curtis, we might be able to experiment with a little bit of that in February, because we're going to have a set of 4. So we might be able to work on a little bit of the layering and stuff.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I was thinking about potentially,
even if it's after the party and it's just you and me messing around and just, like, figuring stuff out.
Yeah, I'm with that. I mean, like, the other side of it too is I could possibly grab, like, a whole stack of acapellas and, like, start working on trying to, like, throw those into the mix.
Yeah.
Like, when we have 4 decks together, I mean, it's like sky's the limit at that point.
Right.
Absolutely. Like, you brought up like acapellas and stuff like that, and I've definitely done that in my past when I've had 4 decks where I've spun on 3 and had the 4th as a sample deck for the scratch over.
The scratching,
You know
exactly.
I mean?
Yeah, we talked about the last episode, scratching on acapellas, and it's something we eventually want to try out. But yeah, I think February would be a good try. Like I said, even if it's after the party, and we just start messing around with stuff. I mean, obviously we're spending the weekend, so.
So Zach, I guess this is an interesting thing for me because it's like we're just consumers on the back end. I mean, me and Chris spend 90% of our time on Beatport and then like 10% on Bandcamp. But from the person that's actually making the music, so like you've made the music, did you hunt out a label or did they hunt you out?
For what exactly? What do you mean?
So like I'm just thinking about it from the distribution side of it. Like in the beginning when you started making tracks, you were like, I'm guessing like the first place that those went were like SoundCloud.
Yeah, for the most part. You know, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, stuff like that for the most part. YouTube's another powerful platform that's very, very slept on, you know, because people think that it's just like random people for the most part, but there's plenty of like uploads on there that are YouTube exclusives, you know, and stuff like that, from whether it's from labels that release exclusively on there, whatever. Another big thing, so like you were saying, like, do you reach out to labels or do they reach out to you? It's usually a little bit of both, you know what I mean? Like some tracks that you have, you know, like you'll send out or whatever, and then like other times you have labels that'll just hit you up and be like, hey, anything new, or like, you know, whatever, on like rare circumstance that maybe you've worked with before, you know, and that's always a foot in the door too. A lot of it's just networking, you know?
So
everything's networking, man.
I don't understand how the process works. So just like follow me in the sense that I'm going to ask layman questions.
Shoot.
So you build a track, you get a call from a label. They want that track. Like you send it to them. I'm guessing that they listen to it and they're like, oh, this will be dope. They're going to take it. Do they buy it from you at that point, or how does that work?
Well, that really, it just depends on you and what you and your label work out at the end of the day. Honestly, I can't really answer that because it's different for everybody, you know?
Okay.
Everybody's contracts are different, stuff like that. Not necessarily person to person, but maybe label to label, or even for certain circumstances. Because if you're doing like a compilation album, for example, where you have a bunch of like artists on, that might be different, so to say, than if you're releasing an EP or, you know, or something to that effect, or like an exclusive for that label, for example. Everything's going to be different.
So if there's somebody that's watching this and they like go back, because, you know, it just gets archived and it's there forever.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody that's like, they've been on Ableton, they've been banging out beats, they're making their own music, but like they haven't made that transition, they haven't learned what the next thing is, or like they haven't made the mistakes that you've made before? Like, what's the best way for them to move forward?
Just keep doing it. Like, you know, like don't harass people, but like definitely get your stuff out there. You know what I mean? Whether that's like nowadays posting in a Facebook group. Like when I first started DJing, like I made mixes and handed them out at CDs at festivals, because like, what's the first thing you do when you drive home or you drive anywhere? You throw on music. And like, everybody doesn't have an aux cord still, even in this day and age, and still have CD players. I know my car, for example, does, like, you know, so pop on a CD, you get a new CD from a festival, you're like, well, I'm going to listen to this, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it's just like, it's all just finding a way for people to consume your product. You know what I mean? And I hate saying it like that, but like, that's really what it's come to now. And like, honestly, like, just don't give up. Just keep trying. Just keep pushing it out. Like I said, don't cram it down people's throats, but
that's the way it's always been, though. I mean, Curtis, the old punk shows, we used to buy, you know, white label cassette tapes that out of some dude's backpack.
Yeah.
And we pop them into the cassette player in the car on the way home from the show. It was the same.
Well, exactly, you know, like,
I mean, you're part of that generation that's like, they don't remember what a cassette tape is, and like the CD is almost there. Where like you hand a CD to most people and they're like, what is this?
Where do I put this?
Yeah.
Like
I was kind of that weird in between period, you know, because like I didn't have a computer like when I was born, but like when I was like 5 or 6, like I definitely had a computer, and like remember getting yelled at to get off because somebody was on the phone, like, you know, like stuff like that, you know, like
the fact that you even remember like what that means is like, it ages
fantastic.
It ages you a little bit, because like I thought that you were like pre like AOL dial tone. But
yeah,
like,
no, like I remember all of that with the screeching noise and all of that, and yeah, and the you got mail from AOL.
you are not as young as I thought you were. That
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, me and Curtis.
That means that Zach
yeah,
actually had a Facebook page or a MySpace page.
a MySpace.
So. I did actually. It's
Yeah,
long gone now for good reason, but yeah, definitely.
Me and Curtis were born in the 8-track days, like the end of the 8-track days.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously advanced into the MP3 days. So that was a.
We saw the baby MP3s. We saw them when they were the worst sound quality ever. Like the fact that it was it was like it was a song. I was like, it only took me 7 hours to download it, but I can listen to this. Like,
yeah. No, I totally get that. Or like, I die inside now when like I hear like people call like a floppy disk like a save icon, and I'm just like, oh, like you know what I mean?
Yeah. Where like we grew up in the era where if you hit somebody with a phone, you would have killed them.
Yeah.
It's the Zack
like,
phone.
I totally get that. Like I remember like having like a flip phone. Like I remember when the Razor came out and like you still couldn't take pictures on it. Like you know what I mean? And like you're like the cool kid if you were able to like take a picture, record a video, but you still couldn't send it to anyone, you know? Yeah, like you had to manually show them.
So we had the Nokia bricks that you could only play Snake on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Like where do we go from here? Because like I totally agree with you on the CD thing that like for now it's beneficial, but like where do we go from here when like that just isn't an option? Because like I know that like my car doesn't even have a CD player anymore.
Yeah.
Thumb drives, man.
Yeah, I mean like
that's not like, that's maybe where we're going. You just buy like 1,000 thumb drives and you just hand them out.
Like, yeah.
I mean, it's crazy because like thumb drives were like super cheap, and then like all of a sudden they got super expensive now again. But like you could find cheap ones, but they don't really work that well. So like it all just kind of depends on how accessible that would be, you know? Because like if I could bulk order 1,000 flash drives for like, you know, like 50 cents a piece or something like that, like that's kind of a no-brainer, so to say. You know, even that's kind of expensive, obviously. Well, but like, you know,
the other side of it too is that like they got to the point to where you could like drop a CD into like I know that Alcavar has one of those crazy CD loaders that like just burns CDs.
Yeah.
But like with a thumb drive, you're there forever. Like you're like into the USB, move the track over, pull it out.
Yeah.
Like you could literally spend all night. I mean, I guess that you could like buy like 10 or 15 of those like extenders.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but that's still work of plugging each one in and all that. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Like, see, and that's like the weird thing of like, can't really answer that. You know,
it would be, and I know that like if anybody ever watches this and steals it, it would be genius. The awesome thing would be if you as a DJ could go to a website, send them your mix, and then order how many of the thumb drives you wanted. And then, like, potentially get them, like, personalized, like they got screens.
Yeah, almost like you're pressing vinyl.
Yeah. They definitely personalize them, dude. I used to have one of my customers was SanDisk.
Exactly.
Like, around Christmas time, like, they just have bowls, like, huge bowls of, like, 1 gigabyte thumb drives.
Yeah, but what I'm saying,
like
instead of you being the one that has to load all of
I know what you're
mixes,
saying,
you would just order it from the site, and then they would just send you the thumb drives with the mix already on it.
Yeah.
So like I remember my college that I went to, they had bracelet ones that were literally like they were like, you know, like rubber like bracelets.
Yeah,
exactly. Like I like that'd be cool. Like, you know what I mean? Give out a bracelet with a USB that has a mix on it or something, you know, plug it in your car on the way home.
That's not a bad idea.
Well, the dog chain ones, I saw that the kids in Chicago were doing those, and I was like,
I have one as well.
That's so dope.
Yeah, I carry all my flash drives on. I played Jungle is Massive up when we did it in the Higgins Armory with the Maid crew.
Yeah, that was Valdez party.
Yeah, amazing party, like amazing scenery and everything. Like probably one of the best parties I've ever played.
The acoustics in that third level were amazing.
Oh yeah. So all the artists got dog tags that had our names on them for like our artist pass, so to say. So like I always thought that was really cool, you know. So I just kind of threw my thumb drives on there, and like that's been my thing now. I never lose them because they're around my neck, you know.
That's our old glossies, Curtis.
Yeah. It got to the point where like there was just piles of them in my house, and I was just like, no, these are all going away. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. It's funny because like I did the same thing, and then when you really need them, you're like, I know I had like 1,000 flashlights. Like, where'd they all go? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
It always works like that.
So, from a perspective of somebody that has like, me and Chris have never played in the real, so like you have. Is there anything when you're on like the CDJs with those thumb drives? Like, is there a specific brand or like, is there any one specific like type or something like that works better with the CDJs?
For thumb drive wise?
Yeah.
Just like the newest version. So like they have like I forget what they're called, and it's gonna kill me. I think they're like 3.0s or something like that, which is like SanDisk's newest that came out. They just load faster, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Where like if you have like an older flash drive, like it might take a second to load in the CDJ. Like when you're scrolling through, it might like lag a little bit, stuff like that, just because it's not processing data as fast.
Don't mind me. My cat's just screwing up my whole setup.
I love the fact that the cat's in the background, like pawing at the like 100 proof thing.
Right.
You're like, this is professional. Get out of here, kitty.
Get out of my studio. It's probably Western Digital, which is what SanDisk used to be.
Okay.
They make the highest grade storage. Like that's what they do. They do government storage. They do phone storage. They have iPhone. They have Android. They have everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of their thing. That's what they do. They kind of own the market on it. So.
Yeah, I mean, the optimal way of doing it, because I know that a lot of times you get two so that you can just drop them into both decks. But I know that it's getting to the point now where a lot of times they're running the FireWire between, and like you really only need to go into
linking it.
Yeah, and like if you do an SSD drive, it's instantaneous. So like if you bring in like if you bring in a terabyte SSD drive, there is no load time. Like it should fire up instantly. And like that's the thought process is that like, oh, should I just buy an SSD drive because like that's kind of the way we're going, or do you just get two USBs and just call it a day? Like,
I mean, see, I like USB personally because like they're not as expensive, and even if you do, God forbid, lose it, you know what I mean? It's not that much of a hit.
Yeah, exactly.
Where like I'm gonna be upset if my terabyte drive goes missing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a rough night, and like we've all seen it. Like we've been at the rave where it's like, dude, somebody just walked off with the mixer. Like
exactly. Like plus like even with the link like that, if you're playing on multiple decks like 3 and 4, like not every time are all 4 of them going to be linked on one. You know what I mean? Like you're still going to need. I always carry at least like 3 to 4 drives on me, like. Just in case all 4 that I have at the time aren't linked. You know what I mean? Just so I can use all 4 and do my best performance without.
But they're all duplicates of the one. It's for the same, all the same information on each one of them.
Exactly. Even 2, just in case both of them are linked and it's like 2 are linked and then the other 2 are linked. You know what I mean? Just for base minimum.
It makes sense, man.
So I guess the next thing that I was going to get at with you, Zach, was were you streaming prior to COVID, or is this kind of like a new thing now?
I did every once in a while, like on Facebook or something like that, like just for fun and stuff like that. But so like since COVID happened, obviously we're all stuck indoors for the most part. And like I was kind of hesitant on it at first because obviously everybody was going to be doing it. And then COVID kind of extended for the most part. And obviously like, we're still not going anywhere probably for a while. So I was like, why not? Especially if people need music, people are losing their minds inside their house, so if they can turn their house into a dance studio for an hour while I'm playing, you know what I mean? And that's what they needed, then so be it. I'm just happy to do my thing at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's been playing out for a while. I mean, what was Junglist Massive at the Higgins? That was 2015?
Oh, I don't even know. I don't even remember, honestly.
I think it was something like that. I think Junglist Massive, because that was the 3rd one, if I remember.
3rd one, yep. Yeah, it was years ago. I know that.
2015, so that was like, 5 years ago.
5 years ago now, yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's going to be 6 whenever it passes this year. Probably a couple months, actually. Yeah.
If he doesn't pass and we get to do it again.
Yeah, honestly, right?
I haven't really figured out, and I know that like when I was reading up on Ticketmaster, their game plan is to get. I don't know who said it this morning, but I know that they were the ones talking about it. The cards from the vaccination. So like when you get vaccinated, you get a comeback to get your second shot card.
Yeah.
And they're asking people to hold on to those.
A vaccine ID is what they're calling
it. Yeah. In a way of being able to, I guess Ticketmaster is going to require them, like, I don't know if it'll be this year or at a certain point when there's enough people vaccinated, they're going to reopen concerts, reopen comedy shows, reopen all of that stuff under the cloak that like you will have to provide that at the door as you're coming in.
Yeah, just like your regular ID, you have to provide a vaccine ID as well.
I mean, I am understanding of the situation, and I think it's totally fine because it's keeping people from getting hurt, and like that's what we should all be doing anyways. Like the thing that hasn't made any sense to me is that like, and this, there's a piece of me that like understands that I'm being an old man and I'm being a shithead about this, and there's another piece of me that feels like it's really greedy, and I'll break down what I'm getting at, Zach. So like when we were in the rave scene in the beginning, when we were getting into warehouses, when we were breaking into basements, when we were like throwing furniture out of the front of people's like plate glass windows, like
we're throwing parties in mud puddles, dude.
Yeah,
I mean,
like me and Bliss have pretty much lived the life of punk rock destruction in the rave scene like the entire time. And like it's just been anarchy and fun. Like it's like maximum amount of fun, maximum amount of anarchy. And like that it was the ethos of like us in the beginning. And then like now you've got these kids that are throwing these raves, and like old man me is like, well, that's really irresponsible because like you can take this home, spread it, and then like grandma's dead. Like you don't want to kill grandma. But then like at the back end of it, it's like, would I have done anything differently if I was young? And like I can't really wrap my head around that.
I mean, like, I don't know, like, I'm not really a good pick for that because, like, my mom's immunocompromised, so, like, I've been doing my part, and I've, like, stayed inside basically the entire time for the most part, like, you know what I mean? Like, I may be in my car right now, but, like, I'm sitting down the street from my house, you know what I mean? Like, I haven't gone anywhere for the most part, honestly.
No, I mean, we've been in lockdown for the entire time, like, since March. All have been in, like, lockdown for almost a year.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, you know, and like still a lot of people, even my age, are still actually taking it serious, you know what I mean? But you're always going to have those shitheads out there that like, you know, because like other countries, for example, have already gotten back to like a halfway normal sort of life, so to say, you know what I mean? Sure, there's still flare-ups here and there, you know, but not anywhere close to as bad as how we are, you know what I mean?
London's not doing well right now.
Yeah, I mean,
well, yeah, London exactly has like the new virus, but like if you look,
and
at
they were
like,
one of the first to like, oh, we got rid of it, we're done with it.
But that's the thing is that if you look at the countries that were the like, they let everything open. Like I think, was it Switzerland? It was either Switzerland or like Finland. One of those like
Finland.
Yeah. So everybody was like, oh well, Finland's not locking down and they're fine. It comes back that the spike hit so hard in Finland that I don't know if it's a president or if it's like a prime minister or something like that. He comes up and he was like, I was wrong. He's like, we should have closed. Like, it's like what ends up happening.
Based on population, because their population is much smaller than ours is per capita, they were like, our numbers are down.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm sure they have the same problem as us. Is like they still have fucking shitheads out there going around partying, doing their thing, spreading it around, you know?
I wonder what the Florida of Finland is.
But like coming back to like the Ticketmaster thing, like it'll be weird, but you got to remember it won't be forever because eventually, you know, with the vaccine, everybody will get vaccinated at some point, or it'll be so. What's the word? It'll be the population that isn't vaccinated will be small enough to where it won't be as high of a risk to where you have to worry about going down the street so much of being in a giant group gathering, like mumps, for example.
The population that doesn't get vaccinated is going to decrease exponentially over time.
Well, that's the thing.
Mumps is a perfect example of that. Like, mumps is like basically eradicated for the most part, but you still have those rare couple people that aren't vaccinated for it that it flares up. You know what I mean? I feel like corona might be the same way.
Well, you're vaccinated for that as a child.
Yeah, but it's a choice at this point. Back in the day when it first came out, like polio and mumps and stuff like that, like people all went deep on that because they knew what the impact of that was. You know,
exactly.
Like, corona has killed so many people, even people that like we know.
Yeah.
And the idea to be like, I don't trust it, I'm not getting the vaccine, is so irresponsible. Like,
absolutely.
I want that shot in my arm now. Like, I want to be done with this shit.
And it's not even for my own personal benefit at this point. It's literally just for other people. You know what I mean? Because, like, who wants to kill anybody at the end of the day? Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Just from being, you know, selfish, basically, at that point, you know? And that's really what I don't
knows, because Danielle came down for Scotty's mom, too.
Yeah.
But exactly, like, you know, like, we've all had people affected, and it's just so crazy to me that people are still trying to treat it like it's not real when it's affected so many, like, the entire world, literally.
I know. Well,
it's crazy.
Zach, that's pregame. That's literally what we do for an hour, man. Like, we get together, we talk stupid shit. Like, normally it's Star Wars, so I guess you missed out on that, like, this week. Like, we didn't talk Marvel, Star Wars.
Next time.
Yeah.
Oh, we can nerd out for a second. I did finally watch Wonder Woman, and it was an absolute snooze fest.
It's so bad.
Oh my god.
It's so bad.
Mandalorian is the villain. I was like, could he play a worse character?
I didn't mind him as the villain. I just
Zach, have you seen it? Wonder Woman 84.
Say that again.
Have you seen Wonder Woman 84?
I have not yet.
Don't bother.
Never mind. Like, well, I was gonna go deep.
No, you can spoil it, dude. Please don't watch it.
So, I didn't think he was a villain. I think that he was a guy that was...
He was just a guy.
Yeah, that was like...
doing a thing.
Well, no. He knew that the wells were running dry. He needed to provide for his family. Like, he was on the skids. You can't villainize a guy that's trying to provide for his family. And I think that's what made me angry.
I think it was too much of a love story than an action movie. Like, the first movie killed it, dude. Like, the first movie was action-packed, like, everybody beating the crap out of each other and people winning, and it was great. And
dude,
like,
the CG and the flying scenes was
when she was running
so
down
bad.
The street, when she was running fast down the street.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, it was not a finished movie, right?
It was unfinished, and they're rushing the third one.
Oh, my God.
That seems to be a common theme as of recently, too, in many fields.
Yeah. Oh, and Cheetah, her CGI
was so bad.
I saw somebody posted, they were like, oh, she needs to be more cat-like. Oh, no. She needs to be less cat-like now.
Less cat.
Right, guys.
Less cat.
Okay, buddies.
Okay.
Thank you so much
for
talking,
man. We're excited to have you on Wednesday.
Yeah, you're on Wednesday. I'm tonight at 10:30. This is such a busy week. Thursday, we've got
you packed it in this week, huh?
I know.
Thursday and Friday.
I'm playing Raga Jungle on Thursday, and that's a raid. We've got Man Like Steeps. Zach, if you have not watched his YouTube videos yet, please go watch Man Like Steeps.
I definitely will.
Is the funniest dude. I like piss myself, and it's the Junglist. What is it? He calls it the Junglist newscast, and it is the most ridiculous. It's like Monty Python level funny. I cannot. But he's playing on Thursday, and that dude is hilarious. So like, it is worth watching his shit.
Make sure you follow 100 Proof on Twitch, obviously, because it's a raid train from there.
Yeah, we're gonna raid train that, and then Friday is the Happy Hardcore event, and then Saturday, Cake's playing at midnight. So
that flyer, by the way, for Cake is fantastic, dude. I have to give you kudos for that. The Dirty Dancing font, and then just the picture of her. It all fits perfectly.
It was funny. I think it was Gypsy. Gypsy hit me up yesterday and was like, "Dude, your flyers are on point." And I was like, "I feel like such a phony building flyers because like we grew up with like Mike Synergy, and like Mike is a monster. Like his flyers are amazing."
you're catching up, dude. You're definitely killing it.
No, I am not Mike Synergy.
Dude, that cake flyer is phenomenal.
Oh, okay. I can't take compliments. Go away.
We're running a little. Yeah, Curtis doesn't accept compliments. Well,
okay, so I will definitely be there on Wednesday in the chat room to check out your set. And
no doubt.
Yeah, and I'll be back for my Liquid set at 10:30 tonight, guys. So, peace.
All right.
Peace, brothers. Good talking.
Take it easy.